So, as you know, Nilou is getting a rerun in the first half of 3.6 update, and I've seen a lot of players having conflicting opinions about Nilou, especially since Dendro meta has been dominating, and a lot of people aren't sure how good is Nilou at C0, or if she's even worth pulling for if you're a free-to-play player. So, with this in mind, I'm going to cover things like how good Nilou is, what has changed about her since her first initial release, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about her, and of course, I will also quickly show you the best teams and upgrades you can go for. Finally, I will also give my own personal thoughts on whether I recommend pulling for her, especially if you don't have Nahida, who by many is considered an important teammate for Nilou. Most important of all, the reason I made this video is because I really enjoy using Nilou, and despite the fact she has a niche playstyle, there's actually a ton of different things you need to consider about her, and that's why I want to condense the most crucial information about her in one place. But before we start, this video is sponsored by Eruthiel, a 3D real-time RPG that brings fantasy to theater and features diverse tactics and touching stories. Now, I've already talked about this game since open beta, and I'm super excited about the first big event, Burning Phoenix, which is happening right now. And you don't want to miss this event. There's a ton of generous rewards that you can unlock, including a free Bubblegum Chorus outfit, an exclusive avatar frame, and a lot of resources and currency for summoning. All you have to do is complete the event missions by logging in daily. There's actually two modes. One is super easy to get that event currency and do your pulls. The other, a more difficult mode, is for you to test your team's capabilities and gain some great first-time clear rewards. And of course, what's a gacha game without an awesome featured character? Right now, you can obtain a top-tier SSR rarity character, Sirslet. This sight lady can deal some amazing damage, but she's limited and won't show up in the regular pool, so make sure to join the event and obtain the pulls for her. And if you're still new to this, Eruthiel is a 3D real-time RPG that combines fantasy with theater. It's a really unique theme, to be honest, and if you use my link in the description and download the game right now, you will be able to obtain Media, a free highest rarity top-tier character. So make sure to download the game, help support my channel, and check out Eruthiel now. So, first of all, Nilou is a really unique character in Genshin because she's the only one so far who can change the way how reactions work in the game. Basically, her passive ability provides a team-wide buff where everyone who triggers bloom reactions immediately cause an explosion with the produced Dendro cores that also cause additional increased damage. Without a doubt, if you're considering to pull Nilou, this is the main reason why you should pull for her. Of course, she has some offbeat vape comps you could play around with, and you could also pull for her because, I don't know, maybe you think she's cute, but gameplay-wise, her passive talent that allows everyone to create bountiful cores is her biggest selling point. Now, a lot has changed about her in almost half a year that has passed since her initial release, and probably the biggest one to talk about would be Nahida. When I first reviewed Nilou, it was pretty clear that she would need Dendro Traveler just to cause these blooms efficiently, because at the time, Dendro application was limited and lacking. Now, we have Alhaitham, Yao Yao, Nahida, and Kavi as well as Baiju are coming out soon. So there's definitely a lot more Dendro options to choose from compared to when Nilou first got released. However, hands down, the most impactful teammate for Nilou is Nahida. Now, does that mean Nilou is unusable without Nahida? Not really, but there are a couple of major things that need to be considered. First of all, while most would think that the reason why you want Nahida is her powerful elemental mastery boost that she provides, for Nilou teams, while it is great to have it, it's not what matters the most, and instead, the biggest reason why Nahida is so good with Nilou is that her Dendro application has no downtime, meaning you can use her on field, or her Trikarma skill will trigger consistently on tagged enemies, but more importantly, her Trikarma also applies 1.5 gauge units on enemies. If you are unfamiliar with gauge theory, what this basically means is that you can get an extra Dendro core from Nahida's Dendro application. In short, Nahida in Nilou Bloom teams provides really good Dendro application, not to mention her own personal damage and EM boost that she grants. But still, she's not as essential as Xingqiu or Yelan to Hu Tao. You can build teams without Nahida, although they won't perform as well without Nahida. It's as simple as that. But the thing about Nilou teams is that even if they are underwhelming, in terms of investment or teammates, it still performs really well in AoE scenarios, and you can build a team to perform better in single target, for example putting in Xingqiu or Yelan. In fact, if we talk about the Weenut who is in the Abyss right now, the biggest challenge is getting the timing right and unloading a lot of damage in short amount of time. So because of this, even great single target teams can struggle against it. There are some great players out there who capitalize on everything they know about Nilou Bloom teams and can clear Weenut with 3 stars, but at the end of the day, AoE is where Nilou teams shine best, and it's a really powerful team comp compared to other top meta teams. And speaking of AoE, one of the things that I kinda ignored back when I first reviewed Nilou was her burst. I mean, sure, it doesn't deal a lot of damage, but the amount of invincibility frames it provides is great for surviving those Dendro core explosions, and more importantly, it has a big AoE coverage, so enemies that get out of range can still get damaged by Nilou's burst, and often the generated Dendro core is perfect for finishing off enemies who are far away. All in all, Nilou's potential is really good with bountiful core teams, even if they are restricted restrictive. And while Nahida is a great boost to teams' overall performance, you can build teams without her, although you will feel a big difference once you add her into the team. But I think it's about time we talk about Nilou's free-to-play potential. It's pretty clear that Nahida influenced Nilou Bloom teams. However, Yaoyao had a huge influence on free-to-play Nilou teams. You see, the biggest problem with Nilou before Yaoyao was that you had to either go with Barbara or Kokomi as your healer. Obviously, Kokomi was superior compared to Barbara, but not everyone had the Jellyfish General, so it felt really restrictive if you wanted to play Nilou. However, when Yaoyao got released, things changed for the better. Now, you can build Nilou teams with a lot more flexibility, since Yaoyao not only provides excellent healing from her burst, but you can also apply Dendro if you play her on field, or at least spend a few seconds running around like a maniac when her burst is unleashed and then swap out. I cannot stress enough how much of a blessing Yaoyao is for Nilou, especially since you could literally obtain her for free during the 3.4 event. I talked about Yaoyao's potential in Nilou teams in my previous top Dendro teams video I made, but long story short, compared to when Nilou first got released, there's a lot more ways you can build her Bloom comps, even if you are limited to only Hydro and Dendro teammates, if you want that Bountiful Bloom passive to activate. Also, one character that massively gets overlooked with Nilou is Kali. Believe it or not, she's actually a really good damage dealer when playing in Nilou Bloom teams, and the comp I'm showcasing here is one of the many ways you can utilize her. So if you are interested to see this video about Kali, press the like button and let me know in the comments. Now, in terms of equipment, not much has changed. Slapping on her Iron Sting or any other EM weapon is still your best bet to boost her personal damage, while when it comes to artifact sets, two main ways to build her would be either equipping her with double 2-set, one of which being Tenacity, while 4 sets, it can be either Gilded or the Flower of Paradise, otherwise known as Flop set. Although keep in mind these 4 sets are only recommended if you want to boost Nilou's personal performance. Also, since Vorukasha's artifact set is getting added into 3.6, the 2-set bonus is really good for Nilou, and going for double 20% HP bonus with Tenacity is a great boost for team-wide damage if you don't have Nilou's signature weapon. Also, I don't recommend farming for the Flop set if you already have a good Gilded 4 set, because the overall damage increase is like 5%, and more importantly, Gilded is in the same domain as Deepwood, which you'll definitely need for Nilou Bloom teams. Oh, and if you're wondering, Nilou boosts Bountiful Core damage based on her max health, so the more you have it, the better everyone's Bloom damage will be. And just like when she first got released, you still want to focus on building her with HP as much as possible, while focusing on flat HP, EM, and ER substats. It's pretty simple with all things considered. In fact, you also don't need to raise her talents past level 6, since her damage mainly comes from blooms, not the talents. But raising them to level 6 doesn't cost that much, and it's an efficient way to slightly increase her damage for the materials you're giving up. And of course, since bloom damage scales off character level, having everyone raised to level 90 is also something you're gonna want to do, because most of the time, everyone will be triggering blooms in the team. But that's basically all the stuff you can do in terms of being a free-to-play player. Now let's talk about her upgrades, which you won't obtain without losing your precious Primo Gems. Okay, so there's basically 4 major upgrades to go for if you want to double down on playing Nilou Bloom teams. First of all is of course Nahida. She's going to elevate Nilou team's performance by a large margin, which is fine, we already talked about this. Now the second upgrade would be the Key of Kaj Nizud, or whatever you call it. This sword gives a really big boost because not only it provides health from the substat and passive, but it also boosts everyone's EM based on Nilou's max health. To put it simply, going from Iron Sting to the Key Sword, Nilou's bloom damage roughly increases by about 30 to 35%, while every other teammate who triggers bloom would see somewhere around 20% damage increase. That's pretty massive if we talk about upgrades. However, there's also the third and fourth upgrades to go for, second constellation on both Nilou and Nahida. Honestly, both of them provide the same amount of value, but the biggest difference here is that Nahida's C2 can be used outside Nilou teams, and that way you're also getting the so-called horizontal scaling, which basically means you can use this powerful upgrade outside of one team you're trying to boost. But with all things considered, I would say that the first major upgrade to go for is obviously Nahida. Now, comparing weapon to character banners is a headache due to how hard it is to estimate the luck factor, but I would say if you care deeply about boosting Nilou team damage by a significant amount, going for Key Sword would be the next step. Afterwards, I would go for Nahida C2 just because it can be used with other Dendro teams, and then finally C2 Nilou to get that extra damage boost from her resistance shredding. After that, I don't know, I hope you know what you're doing, cause I wouldn't recommend spending money to go Nilou for more than these upgrades. In fact, going for a second constellation or key sword isn't super unrealistic, since you can save up Primo Gems this way as a free-to-play player, although it will take a long amount of time. So again, I only recommend going for these upgrades if you want to heavily invest into Nilou Bloom teams. But all in all, I think what Nilou provides is a really unique and fun playstyle that you can go about building in many different ways, but I would only recommend pulling for her if you're absolutely fine with her restrictive team comps, even if they perform really well in AoE. Obviously, if you're torn about between Nahida or Nilou, then Nahida is a really good choice if you care about getting a lot of value in many different Dendro teams. But if you already have the Dendro Archon and considering getting Nilou, they work absolutely amazing together. I didn't really talk about rotations or specific team comps you can go for, but in reality, most rotations will be chaotic. All you have to do is make sure to enable Nilou's passive so that bountiful cores can be created. But if you are interested in learning more in depth about Nilou's rotations and efficient ways that we can play her, I have left the link in my description to a great document you can read from. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful, and I would really appreciate if you could check out today's sponsor. They really help a lot with my YouTube channel, which I'm grateful for. So thanks for your support and for watching, and see you soon.